Good YouTube, welcome back. Today it is Lazy Daze Tubby and I'm back at it again on my solo channel doing some more history reaction for you guys today, and it is some more Ibn Battuta's content by Extra History, Extra Credits. They make some amazing content, so if you haven't already, head over to their page. We are doing the Ibn Battuta series and it is the Escape to China episode 4. I'm really looking forward to finding out what they've got in store for me today. So if you're looking forward to my reaction, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but we're going to jump straight into this one.
1340, Delhi. For 6 years, Ibn Battuta has served as a Qadi for the Sultan of Delhi. But now he's under house arrest, awaiting execution. His friendship with the Sufi mystic had put him on the wrong side of the court. Ibn Battuta's friend had offended the Sultan by refusing a royal summons and calling the ruler a tyrant. In response, the Sultan tortured the mystic to death and arrested all of his associates. For 9 days, Ibn Battuta prays and recites the Quran from memory. Then, the Sultan beckons. Ibn Battuta goes expecting to die. But then the Sultan behaves like they're old friends, and everything's normal, as if he hasn't spent days preparing for death.
That would make me
that Ibn
so...
Battuta realizes one thing.
That would make you so mentally unstable.
He's got to escape Delhi.
Well, because he's mentally unstable. Like, what are you supposed to do in that situation?
Right as Ibn Battuta had arrived in Delhi, India entered a 7-year drought, which in turn caused a famine, which in turn triggered uprisings. Lots of uprisings. In fact, Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq would face 22 rebellions during his last 15 years in power. Hindus revolted against taxes, Indian Muslims rose against the foreign advisors, governors declared independence or hatched assassination plots, and Muhammad Tughlaq's paranoia went into overdrive. Ibn Battuta tried to tough it out, but after his brief imprisonment, he decided he had enough. And while the contract he'd signed meant he couldn't leave India, there was a loophole. He could go into religious retreat. So Ibn Battuta, court official and rich man, took the only escape hatch he could. He gave up all of his possessions, declared himself an ascetic, and lived in a cave. It was something he'd actually felt called to for years. Ever since he first began to encounter Islamic hermits, he'd wondered if that would be his path. Now, he learned to meditate, to live with nothing, fasting for 40 days at a time. But 5 months later, a summons came from the Sultan. He wanted Ibn Battuta back at court, and Ibn Battuta accepted. Partially because the Sultan killed anyone who refused, and partially because the offer came with a gift of gold, robes, horses, and enslaved people that restored all Ibn Battuta had given up, plus some. However, Ibn Battuta, rich again, went to court with a plan. He would get permission to make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and then just never come back. Huh? But the Sultan had his own idea. He needed an ambassador to visit the Yuan Emperor and deliver an enormous train of gifts. Would Ibn Battuta, famous traveler, want to go to China in style?
Of course he would.
He did not have to ask twice. But travel was dangerous in the unstable empire, and on the way to the coast, rebels ambushed the train. In the conflict, Ibn Battuta was separated from the diplomatic train, carrying all he owned, and was chased into the country. About to be captured, he was forced to lose his pursuers by ditching his horse and hiding while they followed his previous steed. A few days before, he'd been one of the richest men in Delhi. Now, he was alone in enemy country with only his sword, boots, jewelry, clothes, and will to live. Then he promptly ran into rebels who captured him, took said sword and jewels, and handed him over for execution. But Ibn Battuta still had his clothes, boots, and will to live. So he negotiated his release by giving his would-be executioners his fine tunic. Free again, he wandered the countryside, evading rebels and living by his wits for a week, with nothing now but his shirt, pants, boots, and still a will to live.
Okay, what are you gonna do, Ibn?
He stumbled into a town to beg for food and promptly got robbed for his shirt. But he wouldn't quit. He still had his pants and his boots, and you know what? Wait, scratch that. At this point, he'd actually lost one boot trying to draw water out of a well. So, yeah, it was at this one booted point when he lost his will to live. But then, a miracle. Amidst this land of Hindu rebels, a Muslim man found him, fed him, and took him upon his back to bring him to safety. And on the way, Ibn Battuta recited the Quran until, exhausted, he passed out. When he awoke, he was in a friendly town and found out that the rest of his diplomatic mission was just 6 miles away, and very surprised to find him alive. And they still had all of his baggage and servants. He was rich again. Rejoining the group,
Interesting.
they traveled to Calicut, a major port city where they could meet up with Chinese junks. These ships, enormous compared to the dhows Ibn Battuta traveled on, were Chinese-built, but crewed by Muslims in the India-China trade. He marveled at their 5 decks, and most of all, their large private cabins with their own lavatories. However, for this voyage, Chinese merchants and the other court diplomats had reserved all of those rooms, leaving Ibn Battuta with a smaller, toiletless cabin. That was no big deal, though. Ibn Battuta had learned humility after all. He'd lived in a cave, and just days before, he only had one shoe. He wouldn't quibble over a slightly smaller cabin.
Yeah, of course he did.
Oh,
He did?
right, yeah. He threw a fit. How dare they honor the Sultan's ambassador by giving him worse accommodations than common merchants and lesser diplomats? Ridiculous. After essentially wanting to speak to their manager, the ship's agent, a Syrian, managed to smooth things over by securing a comparable stateroom on the fleet's second, slightly smaller ship. This mollified the prickly ambassador, and Ibn Battuta loaded all of his possessions and entourage into the second ship. The night before the voyage, he stayed on shore to pray, and suddenly a storm blew up. One bad enough that the 2 vessels had to put to sea, leaving him ashore, again with nothing but the clothes on his back. As he watched from the shore, the vessel he was supposed to be on wrecked, killing everyone aboard. And the second ship, carrying all that he owned, blew so far out to sea that they decided to continue to China without him. He was stranded and poor again. And now, he'd lost all of the Sultan's splendid gifts for the emperor. So he really didn't want to go back to Delhi and explain his failure.
Wait, he's lost all the gifts. All the gifts. To
the Sultan's execution elements. At first, he tried to get a job with another Indian Sultan, even fighting in an amphibious assault to prove himself worthy of employment. But that didn't work out, and Ibn Battuta instead snuck off with a nebulous plan to just go to China. You know, fulfill as much of his old mission as possible. In doing so, he of course would take the most out-of-the-way route possible through the Maldive Islands. But the local Muslim authorities there needed a chief judge, and they were applying him with gifts. So, you know, old habits.
Chill for a little bit.
He agreed to stay and take the job, under a few conditions. First, he got a ton of treasure, making him rich again. Second, he married into the royal family. And third, he didn't want to walk anywhere. Yeah, he had to be carried on a litter like the king. They agreed, and he spent 9 months meting out punishments under religious law, doling out floggings for failing to attend mosque, sentencing thieves to have their hands cut off, and, unsuccessfully, trying to convince the island's women to stop going around topless. He married 3 more times, finding that the island's cowrie shell dowries were cheap and divorce simple. Indeed, it was common at this time for merchants to get temporarily married during these short stays. But his high living gained him enemies, and he fled the Maldives with his new fortune, only to tarry on a neighboring island just long enough to get married and divorced twice more. Then at last, he took his replenished treasury and toured Sri Lanka before hiring yet another ship to take him to China. A ship which was attacked by pirates, who once again took everything he owned. You know, I don't think the universe liked Ibn Battuta being rich. But
No, they didn't.
His luck changed. He then got passage to the court of the Muslim Sultan, who ruled the northern tip of Sumatra. And that little side trip you can hear about over in our Majapahit series, because this guy gets around. When he departed, he at last left behind the Islamic world, the last kingdom he would visit, ruled by a Muslim. He stopped in the kingdom of Champa, current-day Vietnam, and visited a third great kingdom, that of the warrior queen, Urdura, that may have been in either the Philippines or Java. Urdura, tall, adorned with gold and jewels, her hair flowing long, gave Ibn Battuta gifts and showed him the powerful fleet she used to battle Chinese forces. Her greatest ambition, she told him, was to lead an expedition to India, so she pumped him for information about his time there. Waving goodbye, she put him on a ship to China, and at long last, he arrived at his objective, the land of the Mongol Yuan emperors, where even beggars wore silk, a place so alien he could barely understand it. And haunting his steps came a new horror, the Black Plague.
Well then, I guess we will find out what happens in the next episode with the Black Plague and Ibn Battuta. If you guys enjoyed my reaction and looking forward to the next one, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but I will catch you in the next video.